"Do not call security." Claire Bennett said it so quietly that Grant Mercer almost thought the storm had spoken for her. Rain pressed against the windows of the 62nd floor, turning the city below into a blurred grid of headlights, unaware that something inside Mercer Dynamics had begun to crack. Grant sat at the end of the conference table with a report open before him, though he had stopped reading when Claire entered. It was 1:17 in the morning. No one came to an executive floor at that hour carrying a paper file unless the digital system could no longer be trusted. Claire's coat was damp, and her guarded silence felt alive. Claire's fear was different. It had learned how to sit still. "You asked for the person who flagged the irregular transfers," she said. "That was me." Grant closed the report. "And you refused to send the documents electronically." "Yes." "Why?" Claire looked toward the black glass wall reflecting empty chairs, silent monitors, and the camera above the door. "Because electronic records leave footprints. So does coming here." "I know." She placed the folder on the table. Her right hand remained beneath her left sleeve. Grant noticed small things. A pause before an answer. A decimal in the wrong column. A director who stopped making eye contact. He noticed Claire angle her body away from the camera and choose the chair nearest the stairwell. "The transfers were approved through a security operations account," she said. "The amounts are too small to trigger an audit, but they repeat every 31 days. Same pattern. Different vendors." Grant opened the folder. Inside were spreadsheets marked with dates, account codes, and handwritten notes. Shell companies? Maybe. But they are not taking money out. Then what are they buying? Claire hesitated. "Access." The word seemed to lower the temperature in the room. Grant studied the pages. Service contracts. Remote storage. Data retention. Private monitoring systems. "Who else has seen this?" he asked. "No one." "Your supervisor?" "No. Legal?" "No." "Internal security?" Claire's hand tightened beneath her sleeve. "Especially not internal security." She reached for the folder. Her cuff caught against the table and slipped several inches. For dark marks circled her wrist, not new enough to be fresh, not faded enough to be forgotten. Grant did not move. Neither did she. Then Claire pulled the sleeve down. "I bumped into a cabinet," she said. It was the kind of lie offered not to deceive, but to end a conversation. Grant knew better than to challenge it. Anger arrived fast, the instinct to identify a threat and remove it. But Claire was watching him, measuring his reaction with the same care she had used on the spreadsheets. One wrong question would close every door she had opened. "Does anyone know you are here?" he asked. Her expression shifted. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you came after midnight, avoided the network, brought hard copies, and asked me not to involve security." He kept his voice level. "You are worried about who can see you carrying this." Claire glanced at the camera. The system records badge access, elevator use, room reservations, and camera feeds. It can create alerts based on names. That would require executive authorization. Or inherited authorization no one has reviewed in years. Grant leaned back. His father had built Mercer Dynamics on the promise that data could make companies safer. Grant had spent 7 years modernizing that promise without questioning every sealed room beneath it. "Are you saying someone here is using our security infrastructure to track employees?" "I am saying the numbers suggest a private layer beneath the official system. And security is involved." Claire said nothing. Grant looked at her covered wrist, then at the folder. "I can lock the security division out before sunrise." "No," the answer came too quickly. "If you move now, whoever built this will know we found it. Records will disappear. Logs will be rewritten. People will remember different versions of the truth. Then we preserve the evidence first. We do not know where all of it is. I have people I trust." Claire gave him a tired look. "So did I." Grant closed the folder. "What do you need from me?" "I need you not to become visible," she said. "Not yet. That may be difficult." "Then pretend this is a negotiation. You do not control the room by speaking first. You control it by knowing what the other side is afraid to hear." Before Grant could answer, the badge reader beside the door flashed green. Claire froze. The lock released with a soft click. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped inside. Dry despite the rain and calm despite the hour. Owen Caldwell, head of corporate security, smiled as if he had arrived for a scheduled meeting. His eyes moved first to the folder, then to Claire's lowered sleeve, and only then to Grant. "Mr. Mercer," he said pleasantly, "I did not realize you had company." Claire stood but did not step away from the table. Her face had gone still in the way of someone entering a room she already knew how to survive. Grant looked from Owen to Claire and understood that the danger had not followed her into the building. It had been waiting there all along. Claire drew one careful breath. "Mr. Mercer," she said, her voice so flat it barely sounded human, "this is my husband." Owen Caldwell remained just inside the conference room, one hand near the badge reader, as if the entire floor belonged to him. Grant watched Claire without appearing to. Her shoulders had become rigid, but her expression stayed controlled. That control disturbed him more than panic would have. It suggested practice. "I was not aware this meeting required security oversight," Grant said. Owen smiled. "It does not. I received an automated notice that a restricted room was accessed after hours." Claire kept her gaze on the table. "This room is not restricted." "Not for Mr. Mercer," Owen said. "But your badge was flagged." Grant felt the implication settle between them. Claire had not merely been tracked entering the building. Someone had configured the system to treat her presence as an event. "Why would an internal auditor be flagged?" he asked. Owen looked at Claire as though inviting her to explain a private misunderstanding. There was a concern about unusual access patterns. Human Resources asked us to monitor them. "Which person in Human Resources?" Grant asked. "I would need to check." "Check now." Owen glanced toward the camera. "The administrative console is downstairs." Claire finally spoke. "He can access it from his phone." Owen turned to her. "Claire." He said her name with patient disappointment. Grant noticed her thumb press against the inside of her covered wrist. "You should not be here this late," Owen continued. "We agreed that you would avoid unnecessary stress." "We agreed on nothing." "You are tired." "I am working." "At 1:17 in the morning?" "You are here too." For the first time, Owen had no immediate answer. Grant let the silence stretch. Men like Owen depended on filling every silence with a version of reality that favored them. "This is a confidential audit meeting," Grant said. "You have no authorization to remain." If Claire brought company documents outside approved channels, security has a duty to secure them. She brought them to the chief executive officer. That does not remove chain of custody requirements. Grant almost ordered him out, but Claire's eyes warned him. She had asked him not to become visible. Authority was not the same as strategy. "Actually," Grant said, "stay." Both of them looked at him. He pushed the folder across the table, but not far enough for Owen to reach it. "We are reviewing irregular service contracts tied to security operations. Since you are here, answer a few questions." Owen's expression recovered. "Of course. Do you recognize Northvale Data Systems?" "No. Harbor Point Analytics?" "I have heard the name." "In what context?" "They may have submitted a proposal several years ago." Claire glanced at Grant. It was the first clear signal she had given him. Owen knew too much about one company and too little about the other. "Does security maintain any data environment outside the primary corporate network?" Grant asked. "Not without legal authorization." "That was not my question." Owen folded his hands. "There are disaster recovery systems." "Where?" "Various facilities." Claire spoke. "Would that include Red Hollow, Virginia?" Owen's eyes moved to her. Nothing else changed, but the room seemed to narrow. "I do not know what you mean." "You approved 3 invoices for equipment delivery there." "Then it may be a storage location." "There is no Mercer facility in Red Hollow." Owen looked at Grant. "This is why internal audits should remain within approved procedure. Partial records create misleading conclusions." Grant had heard similar language in boardrooms for years. It sounded responsible until one noticed that every sentence redirected attention from the fact being questioned to the person asking about it. "Then correct the conclusion," Grant said. "What was purchased?" "I cannot answer from memory." "Who authorized it?" "I would need the files." "Where are the files?" Claire answered. On a server that does not appear in the company inventory. Rain moved across the windows in silver sheets. Owen remained calm, but his eyes hardened. Claire has been under considerable pressure, he said. She has a tendency to connect unrelated details when she is overwhelmed. Grant saw her withdraw into herself for half a second. Owen had not denied the server. He had attacked her ability to recognize it. Grant turned to Claire. Are your findings documented? Every transfer, approval code, and address. Can they be independently verified? Yes. Then her condition is irrelevant to the evidence, Grant said. Owen's smile disappeared. I did not say she had a condition. You implied one. Grant stood. You will send me the complete access history for this floor, the alert configuration attached to Ms. Bennett's badge, and every security contract approved during the past 5 years. That could take days. You have until 8 in the morning. And if legal objects? Legal can object to me. Owen looked at Claire. We should speak at home. No, she said. It was a small word, but it changed the room. Owen waited for her to soften it. She did not. Grant opened the door. 8 in the morning. Owen stepped into the hallway, then stopped beside Claire. You do not know what you are starting, he said. Claire met his eyes. That is the first thing you have said tonight that I believe. Owen walked away. Grant waited until the elevator doors closed before securing the conference room from the inside. Claire released a careful breath. You made yourself visible. Yes. He will move the records. Probably. Then we may have lost them. Grant turned the final page toward her. At the bottom of the vendor list was a charge linked to a private residence 15 miles outside the city. The account holder was Eleanor Mercer, Grant's mother. Claire stared at the name. Does she know about the system? Grant looked through the rain at the city below and felt the ground beneath his family name begin to shift. I do not know, he said. But before sunrise we are going to find out who built the room beneath this company, and why my family has been paying to keep the lights on. At 2:12 in the morning, Grant led Claire through a private corridor behind the executive offices, away from the main elevators and every camera Owen controlled. The passage had been designed for visiting dignitaries and emergency evacuations, but tonight it felt less like a privilege than an admission. Mercer Dynamics had always been proud of knowing who entered, who left, and where they went. Now Grant understood that the same certainty could become a weapon in the wrong hands. Where are we going? Claire asked. The archive suite. You said the records were digital. The current ones are. My father kept paper copies of anything he considered too sensitive for the network. Claire looked at him. And you never reviewed them? I reviewed what I was told existed. That is not the same thing. Grant did not answer. At the end of the corridor, he entered a 6-digit code and opened a narrow door with no sign. The room beyond was windowless and colder than the conference floor. Metal cabinets lined both walls. A long table stood beneath fluorescent lights, and at the far end sat a locked black case bearing the old Mercer logo, the version his father had retired 12 years earlier. Claire stopped just inside. Does security have access? Not officially. That answer is becoming less comforting. Grant crossed to the case and placed his hand on the scanner. A green light passed over his palm, followed by a mechanical click. Inside were tax records, handwritten ledgers, and sealed folders arranged by year. He found his mother's name on a tab marked Family Continuity. Claire stood beside him but did not reach for anything. You can still walk away, Grant said. No. You do not know what is in here. Neither do you. That is exactly why I am warning you. Claire turned toward him. You are still trying to decide what I should be protected from. The words landed without anger, which made them harder to dismiss. Grant closed the case halfway. Then tell me the rule. No decisions about me without me. Even if waiting creates risk. Especially then. And if I believe the risk is immediate? You tell me what you know. You give me options. You do not turn my life into an emergency meeting, where I am the only person without a vote. Grant held her gaze. In every negotiation he had ever entered, agreement had been measured by leverage. This felt different. All right, he said. No action without your consent unless someone is in immediate danger. And you explain what immediate means. Agreed. Claire nodded once. It was not trust, but it was the beginning of terms. They opened the first folder together. The records inside appeared ordinary at first. Maintenance agreements, data storage contracts, insurance riders. Then Claire found a handwritten notation beside a payment to Harbor Point Analytics. The initials were E.M. "Eleanor Mercer?" she asked. Grant studied the signature. "My mother signs her full name." Then someone wanted this to look like her approval without making it legally hers. They continued. A second payment referenced behavioral continuity review. A third listed employee stability assessments. None of the phrases belonged in a security budget. Claire arranged the papers by date. These started 9 years ago. That was before Owen joined the company. Maybe before he joined officially. Grant searched the personnel archive on a standalone terminal. Owen Caldwell had been hired 6 years earlier as a regional security consultant. Before that, his employment history listed a private firm called Caldwell Risk Solutions. Claire pointed to the screen. Search the vendor records. Grant entered the name. No results appeared. Claire tried a shortened form. Still nothing. Then she searched the company. Address. Harbor Point Analytics appeared on the screen. The room went silent. Owen owned the vendor, she said. Or controlled it. And the company paid him before hiring him. For what? Grant opened an old contract image. Most of the page was standard language, but one section authorized the collection of off-site behavioral data concerning personnel deemed operationally sensitive. Operationally sensitive, Claire repeated. That could mean anyone. The appendix should define it. There is no appendix. Grant checked the file index. Appendix C had been removed. The deletion date was 3 hours earlier. Claire stared at the timestamp. He was already cleaning the system before he entered the conference room. Then he knew what you found. Or he knew what I was close to finding. Grant reached for his phone then stopped. Claire noticed. Who were you going to call? My general counsel. Ava Sinclair? Yes. Do you trust her? I have for 15 years. That was not my question. Grant lowered the phone. Claire had a way of making loyalty sound like evidence that needed verification. Ava handled my father's estate, he said. She would have seen these contracts. Then either she missed them, approved them, or was told not to ask. You think she is involved? I think we stop using trust as a substitute for proof. Grant looked at the cabinets around them. For most of his life, he had believed the company was built from disciplined decisions. Now every locked drawer suggested that discipline had often meant silence. Claire removed a small drive from her coat pocket. What is that? He asked. An encrypted backup. You came prepared. I came because I stopped believing the system would preserve the truth. She copied the files from the terminal, then photographed each document with a device that did not connect to the company network. Grant watched her work. She was precise, but every sound in the corridor made her pause. Where will you store the copies? He asked. 3 places. Tell me where. Claire looked up. No, his first instinct was irritation. The second was recognition. Because if I know, someone can pressure me. Because this evidence cannot belong to one powerful person, even if that person means well. Grant accepted the answer. At 4:38, they found the missing appendix in a misfiled insurance binder. It contained a list of 27 employees, each assigned a private monitoring category. Some names had dates beside them. Others had notes about medical leave, family disputes, financial stress, or internal complaints. Claire read the list twice. Then she stopped at the 9th name. I know her, she said. Maya Torres. She resigned last year after reporting that someone was accessing her personal calendar. Claire had tried to reach Maya 2 days earlier after finding her name in a preliminary ledger. Maya had sent only one reply. If you found what I found, contact Noah Price, the federal investigator from the Denver audit. Grant found another name, then another. Women from finance, engineering, legal support, and communications. Different departments. Similar complaints. Every report had been closed as unverified. At the bottom of the last page, Claire found her own name. Her category had been marked active 4 years earlier, before she married Owen. Grant felt anger rise again, sharp and immediate, but he kept his hands away from the phone. "He was watching you before the marriage," he said. Claire did not respond. Her eyes remained on the date. "That is not the worst part," she said. She turned the page toward him. Beneath her name was an approval code used only by the office of the chief executive. Grant recognized it instantly. It was his code. Grant stared at the approval code until the letters and numbers seemed to detach from the page. It was not merely associated with his office. It was the digital signature assigned to him when he became chief executive officer 7 years earlier. Only 3 people had ever been authorized to use it: Grant, his executive administrator, and Ava Sinclair, the company's general counsel. Claire watched his face, searching for the first sign that he would deny what they both could see. "Did you approve this?" she asked. "No, can you prove that?" "Not yet." "Then we treat you as part of the chain." The words should have offended him. Instead, Grant felt something colder than anger. Claire was right. Trust had already failed her too many times to be offered as evidence. He moved away from the table and opened a secure access terminal connected only to the executive archive. "Every use of my authorization code should have created a secondary record," he said. "Should have. My father designed the original system. Some of its oldest functions were never integrated into the current network." Claire placed the appendix beside the keyboard. "Meaning someone could use your authority inside a system you never reviewed. Meaning someone may have been doing exactly that." Grant entered his credentials. The screen displayed 7 years of approvals, thousands of entries arranged by date and department. He filtered for the code on Claire's file. The record appeared for less than a second, then vanished. Claire leaned closer. "Do that again." Grant repeated the search. No result. "The archive is being altered," he said. "From where?" "The system does not show a location." "Then disconnect it." Grant reached beneath the desk and removed the network cable. The terminal went dark, then restarted in local mode. Claire took out her camera and photographed the screen as the records rebuilt from internal memory. This time the approval appeared. It had been entered at 3:42 in the morning 4 years earlier. Grant had been in Chicago that night, attending a merger conference with 6 board members and more than 200 witnesses. "You were not here," Claire said. "No, who was?" Grant opened the building access record for that date. One executive badge had entered the archive level at 3:19 in the morning. Ava Sinclair. Claire read the name without expression. "You were about to call her less than an hour ago." "Yes. Do you still trust her?" "I trust that she will have an explanation." "That is not the same as trusting the explanation." A soft tone sounded from Grant's phone. A message had arrived from Ava. "Board meeting at 7:30. Mandatory attendance. Security incident under review." Grant checked the time. It was 5:12. "She knows," Claire said. "She knows something." Grant opened another message. This one came from his executive administrator. Several directors had received an anonymous report accusing an internal auditor of removing confidential company records and meeting privately with Grant after hours. No name appeared in the message, but none was needed. Claire read it over his shoulder. "He moved faster than we did. Owen expected us to search the archive. Or Ava warned him." Grant looked toward the cabinets. Every document around them had become dangerous in 2 directions. The records could expose the monitoring system, but their possession could also be used to portray Claire as a thief. "We need a complete inventory of what you copied," he said. Claire's eyes hardened. "Why?" "Because if the board claims evidence was altered, we need to establish exactly what existed before anyone else touched it." "That sounds reasonable." "You do not believe me." "Reasonable is how control introduces itself." Grant stepped back from the table. "Then you set the terms." Claire considered him for a moment. "I keep the original drive. You receive a copy with a digital fingerprint showing that the files have not changed. We document the time, the source, and every person present. Nothing goes to company legal until I approve it. Ava will demand access. Then Ava can explain why her badge entered this archive on the night your code approved surveillance of me." Grant nodded. "Agreed." Claire began creating the copy. Her hands were steady now, but Grant noticed that she kept her body between the drive and the door. She was not afraid of the evidence. She was afraid of the people who believed they had a right to take it from her. At 6 in the morning, they left the archive through the private corridor. Dawn had not yet reached the city. The office towers beyond the glass stood like dark monuments, each window reflecting a world where secrets could remain respectable, as long as they were filed correctly. Grant led Claire to a small conference room with no active camera. "There is a guest office beside this room," he said. "You can stay there until the board meeting ends." "You mean hide?" "I mean avoid walking into. Room Owen has already prepared." "And let you speak for me?" "No. Let me find out what accusation he intends to make." Claire shook her head. "That is how this keeps happening. Someone decides I am too vulnerable to be present, and then everyone discusses my life as though I am not in it. The board will not treat you fairly. Then I need to see that for myself." Grant wanted to argue, but the promise he had made in the archive stopped him. No decisions about her without her. "You can attend," he said. "But the moment you want to leave, we leave." "Not you. Me. Claire. You do not get to turn my exit into your declaration of war." Grant held her gaze, then nodded. "You leave when you choose." At 7:25, they entered the boardroom together. 12 directors sat around the long walnut table. Ava Sinclair stood beside the display screen, dressed in a gray suit, composed and unreadable. Owen sat near the door with a sealed folder in front of him. No one looked surprised to see Claire. That was how she knew the meeting had always been about her. Ava began without greeting them. At 5:40 this morning, the board received evidence that confidential employee information was removed from protected systems. She touched the screen. A photograph appeared of Claire entering the executive archive with Grant. The image had been taken from a camera he had believed inactive. A second image showed her placing documents into her coat. The angle concealed that they were copies she had brought into the room, not records she had taken out. "This is misleading," Grant said. "It is also incomplete." Ava's expression did not change. "Then perhaps Claire can explain why she accessed files unrelated to her audit." Claire looked around the table. "I accessed evidence that employees were being monitored without their knowledge." Several directors shifted in their seats. Owen remained still. Ava opened the sealed folder. "Before the board considers that allegation, there is another matter." She placed a medical leave form on the table, then a private counseling summary, then a written statement claiming Claire had shown signs of paranoia and fixation. Claire did not touch any of them. Her face became calm in the same terrible way it had when Owen entered the conference room. Grant felt his anger rise, but he remembered her warning. "Do not become visible." Ava looked directly at Claire. "These records suggest that your conclusions may have been influenced by personal distress." Claire lifted her eyes. "Those records are confidential. They were submitted as part of a workplace safety review." "By whom?" Ava hesitated. Owen answered. "By me." Claire turned toward him. He offered the room a look of reluctant concern, the expression of a man prepared to be praised for protecting everyone from the woman sitting in front of him. Then Claire looked down at the counseling summary and noticed a date in the upper corner. Her fear disappeared. "This document is false," she said. Ava's composure shifted for the first time. "That is a serious accusation. It is also easy to prove." Claire pushed the page toward the center of the table. "On the date this report claims I attended counseling in Virginia, I was testifying before a federal audit panel in Denver, Colorado. The hearing was recorded, the travel was paid by Mercer Dynamics, and Grant was sitting 3 seats away from me." The room fell silent. Claire looked at Owen. "You did not leak my private history," she said. "You invented one." No one in the boardroom looked at Owen after Claire spoke. They looked at the false report, as though paper could explain how a lie had passed through legal review, human resources, and corporate security without anyone asking whether it was true. Ava Sinclair recovered first. "We will verify the travel records," she said. "You will verify them now," Claire replied. Her voice was calm, but the calm no longer belonged to fear. It belonged to someone who had found the one fact her accuser could not rearrange. Grant turned to the board secretary. "Pull the federal audit calendar, the company travel authorization, and the expense report from that week." Ava raised a hand. Grant, we should pause this meeting until counsel can assess our exposure. You are counsel. Which is precisely why I am advising caution. Caution for whom? The question silenced the room. Owen leaned forward. This is becoming unnecessarily personal. Claire looked at him. You submitted a fabricated counseling record about your wife to her employer. It became personal when you put my name on the page. I submitted information provided to me by a licensed consultant. Name the consultant. Owen glanced at Ava. The movement was brief, but everyone saw it. Ava closed the folder. The source is protected under the workplace review process. There is no protection for forged evidence, Grant said. One of the directors, Martin Hale, shifted in his chair. We need to be careful with that word. Nothing has been proven. Claire turned toward him. That is true. So let us prove it. The board secretary connected a laptop to the display. Within minutes, the Federal Archive showed Claire seated before an audit panel in Denver on the date printed on the counseling summary. A Mercer Dynamics travel receipt placed her at a hotel less than 2 miles from the hearing. Grant's own calendar showed he had attended the same session. The evidence filled the screen in clean lines and official timestamps. Owen's document remained on the table, suddenly smaller than the damage it had attempted to cause. Who created it? Grant asked. Owen did not answer. Who gave it to you? Grant repeated. My legal representative advised me not to discuss private marital matters in a corporate setting. Claire almost laughed, but there was no humor in her face. You brought the matter into this room. Ava stood between them. This meeting is adjourned pending an independent review. No, Grant said. It is suspended for 10 minutes while the board decides whether Ms. Sinclair can continue acting as general counsel in a matter involving her own credentials. Ava's expression sharpened. You are suggesting I participated in this. Your badge accessed the archive when my approval code was used to authorize monitoring of Claire Bennett. The silence that followed felt different from the earlier ones. This was no longer discomfort. It was fear. Ava looked at Claire, then at the directors. The authorization was part of a legacy security protocol established before. Grant became chief executive officer. Why was his code used? Claire asked. Because the protocol required executive attribution. Without executive knowledge, the office was considered the authorizing body, not the individual. Grant stared at Ava. You used my identity as a seal. Your father approved the structure. My father is dead. The company is not. Ava spoke with the controlled patience of someone explaining a difficult necessity. There were credible concerns about intellectual property theft, insider trading, and coercion by competitors. The monitoring program was created to identify vulnerabilities before they became corporate crises. Claire looked at the list she had copied from the archive. Medical leave, family disputes, financial stress, private complaints. You called people vulnerabilities. We assessed risk factors. You collected private information about employees who had done nothing wrong. The program prevented losses that could have affected thousands of jobs. And when someone questioned it? Claire asked. Ava did not answer. Owen did. They were evaluated for reliability. Claire turned to him. You mean you decided whether the truth was inconvenient? Grant felt the anger he had restrained all night rise with such force that the edges of the room seemed to sharpen. He wanted Owen removed from the building. He wanted every contract, account, and professional connection attached to the man exposed before noon. He wanted consequences large enough to match the years of silence. Mr. Caldwell's administrative access is suspended immediately, Grant said. A neutral technical team will preserve every account and server he can reach. Beyond that, I will freeze every vendor connected to him and name every director who approved this program before noon. Claire stood. Suspend his access. Preserve the systems. But stop there. Grant looked at her. He fabricated evidence against you. I know. He monitored you before you married him. I know. He used this company to follow employees and discredit complaints. I know exactly what he did. Then why are you stopping me? Claire stepped away from the table. Because the suspension protects evidence. The rest is not an investigation. It is a public execution of his reputation. and your anger will give him a way to challenge every step that follows. I care about ending this. No. Right now, you care about winning. The words struck harder because they were spoken quietly. Grant lowered his voice. You think a narrow suspension is enough? It is the first step. We preserve the system, document who still has access, and move the evidence outside the company before anyone makes a public accusation. That could take days. Justice takes longer than revenge. Owen watched them with the faintest return of confidence. Claire saw it too. Do not mistake this for mercy, she told him. I am not protecting you. Then she faced Grant. And I am not giving you permission to become my revenge. Grant's jaw tightened. Permission? Yes. Because if you use my pain to justify whatever you want to do next, then I become another asset in a fight between powerful men. That is not what this is. It is becoming exactly that. Grant looked around the boardroom. Directors avoided his eyes. Ava stood rigid beside the screen. Owen remained close to the door, ready to turn Grant's anger into proof that the company was unstable. Claire had seen the trap before Grant had. If he acted beyond what the evidence required, every accusation could be reframed as a personal campaign driven by a compromised chief executive officer. What do you propose? He asked. We contact Noah Price, the federal investigator who handled the Denver audit. We transfer copies of the evidence outside Mercer Dynamics. We ask for an emergency preservation order for the servers. No one deletes anything. No one makes a public statement. No one warns the vendors. And Owen walks out of here? Under observation, with his administrative access suspended through a neutral technical administrator. He is the head of security. Then appoint someone who does not report to him. Grant studied her face. Claire was not asking him to do nothing. She was asking him to separate necessary restraint from satisfying retaliation. All right, he said. Owen rose. You cannot restrict me. Based on unsupported allegations. Claire looked at the false report on the table. You should choose a better sentence. The board secretary returned with a new message on her screen. Her expression changed as she read it. Mr. Mercer, there is a problem. What is it? The Red Hollow server facility initiated a full data purge 6 minutes ago. Grant turned toward Owen. Owen did not smile. He did not need to. Claire reached for her encrypted drive. Then someone knew we would choose evidence over revenge, she said. And they were waiting to see how long it took us. Claire did not look at Owen when the warning appeared on the boardroom screen. She looked at Grant. Do not order anyone to stop the purge from inside the company, she said. If the deletion command is tied to Owen, any internal response gives him a chance to change the record. Grant understood. The old version of him would have seized control, called every department, and filled the building with instructions. Instead, he turned to the board secretary. Disconnect this room from the corporate network. Use your personal phone to contact federal investigator Noah Price. Tell him we have evidence of an active destruction process at an undisclosed data facility in Red Hollow, Virginia. Owen stood. You have no proof that facility belongs to Mercer Dynamics. Claire removed the encrypted drive from her coat. The payment records, delivery addresses, approval codes, and vendor contracts are here. Ava stepped toward her. That device contains protected company information. Claire closed her hand around it. It contains evidence. You are not authorized to remove it. Neither were you authorized to create false medical records. Ava stopped. Grant watched the balance of the room change. Authority still belonged to the board, but credibility had moved to Claire. 10 minutes later, Noah Price called through a secure line. His voice came through the speaker, measured and unimpressed by titles. He instructed them not to access, alter, or transfer any company system. He was contacting a federal prosecutor to seek an emergency preservation order, and he had asked a field office near Red Hollow to send agents to confirm the location and request that the facility preserve its systems while the court reviewed the application. The purge may still finish before anyone can secure the servers, Grant said. That depends on what kind of purge it is, Noah replied. Claire leaned toward the speaker. It is probably staged. Owen's face remained still, but Ava looked at her. Explain, Noah said. The company has paid for redundant storage every 31 days for 9 years. A real destruction plan would erase the backups first. This warning appeared on the boardroom system where Grant could see it. Someone wanted him to panic and issue an unauthorized command, which would make the chief executive officer responsible for interfering with evidence, Noah said. Exactly. Grant looked at Owen. For years, men had entered Grant's office believing power meant the freedom to act. Claire had shown him that power could also be the discipline to remain still. Noah asked Claire to send the document fingerprints from her encrypted copy. She did, using a temporary connection established through the investigator's office. The files matched records already obtained from a former Mercer employee, Maya Torres. Her complaint had been closed the previous year, but she had kept copies of security alerts that appeared on her personal devices after she reported unauthorized calendar access. She had also identified 3 other women whose internal complaints had disappeared. Owen finally spoke. Former employees with grievances are not reliable witnesses. Claire faced him. That sentence is the foundation of everything you built. At 8:46 that morning, federal agents reached the Red Hollow address. It was not an empty storage site, as Owen had claimed. It was a private data center operating under Harbor Point Analytics. The site manager agreed to isolate the relevant servers and prevent further changes while the emergency order was processed. The investigators could not yet say whether anything had been erased. By late afternoon, after forensic specialists had created protected copies of the system, they determined that the warning had been staged. The central archive had not been destroyed. It had been moved to an isolated partition awaiting a second approval. Activating the final deletion required credentials from 2 people. One set belonged to Owen. The other belonged to Ava. The emergency session reconvened under the supervision of outside counsel, and the boardroom became silent when Noah delivered the preliminary findings through a secure call. Ava sat down slowly. I was protecting the company, she said. Grant looked at the woman who had advised his family for 15 years. You protected the company from accountability. There is no company without survival. There is no survival worth purchasing with other people's silence. Owen turned toward the door. 2 independent security officers hired by the building owner were waiting outside. They did not touch him. They informed him that his credentials had been suspended under the federal preservation order, and that he was required to surrender company devices before leaving. Owen looked at Claire. You think this changes what people will believe about you? Claire did not answer immediately. She seemed to consider the question, not because she doubted herself, but because she no longer owed him a quick reaction. I do not need everyone to believe me, she said. I need the evidence to remain where no one can bury it. Owen left without another word. By noon, Ava had been placed on administrative leave. The board voted to appoint outside counsel and an independent technical administrator. Grant formally abstained from the vote. Instead, he gave Noah every authorization needed to examine the executive archive, including the records tied to his father and mother. 3 days later, the investigation confirmed that Eleanor Mercer's name had been used as a cover for family continuity payments she had never approved. Grant's father had created the original monitoring protocol. After a major theft threatened the company, Ava had expanded it. Owen had transformed it into a private system of control. Grant had not built it, but his refusal to examine the sealed parts of his inheritance had allowed it to survive. At a public oversight hearing 6 weeks later, Claire did not hide her anxiety history, her separation from Owen, or the fact that she had once doubted her own conclusions. She placed each truth on the record before anyone else could weaponize it. Then she presented the contracts, access logs, false reports, and testimony from 11 former employees. Grant followed her. He did not claim ignorance as innocence. He admitted that his office had benefited from a system he had failed to question. He released the company from confidentiality protections covering the program and announced his resignation. Mercer Dynamics lost contracts, directors, and nearly 1/3 of its market value. It also survived, though not in the form Grant had inherited. Owen and Ava were later charged with offenses related to unauthorized surveillance, falsified records, and obstruction. Their cases moved through the courts slowly, without the dramatic satisfaction Grant once believed justice should provide. Claire submitted dated photographs of the marks Grant had seen on her wrist, along with a documented record of Owen's coercive control, in a separate civil proceeding. Her divorce became final 4 months after the hearing. Claire understood the value of that slowness. Revenge demanded a moment. Justice demanded a record. 8 months later, she opened a small office in Arlington, Virginia, less than 2 miles from the federal offices that had helped preserve the Red Hollow records. Her new firm helped employees preserve evidence and challenge internal systems designed to make complaints disappear. On a cold Monday morning, Grant arrived carrying 2 cups of coffee. He stopped at the open door instead of walking in. "I remembered you take yours without sugar," he said. Claire looked at the second cup. "And if I changed my mind? Then I buy another one." She smiled, not because he had remembered, but because he had learned to ask. "You can come in," she said. Grant entered and placed the coffee on her desk. He did not offer funding, influence, or protection. He asked about her work. Claire told him about a client who had finally received access to records that had been withheld for years. He listened without trying to solve the case. When the coffee was gone, Grant stood to leave. Claire touched the cuff at her wrist, then let her hand fall naturally to the desk. There were no marks to hide, but that was not what made the moment different. The difference was that no one in the room believed her freedom belonged to him. "Grant," she said. He turned. "Would you like to have dinner with me Friday?" His surprise lasted only a second. "Yes." That was not permission to make reservations at the most expensive restaurant in Washington. "Understood. Somewhere quiet. You choose." Claire looked through the window at the winter light spreading across the city. Once every system around her had been designed to decide where she could go, what she could say, and whether her memory deserved to be trusted. Now the choice was small, ordinary, and entirely hers. "I will," she said.